a man appeared in the front doors of a quiet hospital. The man was in distress and sweating through his half-unbuttoned, wrinkled linen shirt. His dark skin seemingly pale for his rich melanin heritage. Mondo stumbled through the emergency hospital doors to the nurse's desk. It was apparent he was in urgent need of a doctor's help. The hospital is squatted on the edge of the Haitian coast, its white walls stained by salt air and humidity. The nurses noticed him first by the smell that wafted through the open door. Iron and sweat and sickness and something fatefully aquatic. He was carried back just before 10 at night, the man's body going limp, his breath ragged. "Name?" a nurse asked. "Mondo Naruvas," the man said, his voice strained and barely able to recite his own name. Mondo burned with fever. His eyes rolled uselessly back into their sockets. Blood now flecked his lips each time he coughed. His pulse fluttered, weak and irregular, as if unsure whether to stay. Doctors worked through the night, whispering to one another and baffled by how quickly he was unraveling, boggled by what was affecting this very ill man. He spent days under their care while they tried to save him from an obvious fate. After a few days, the exhausted physicians pronounced him dead, released from whatever was consuming him from the inside. His sister, Angelina, stood at the bedside, staring at his face, as if waiting for it to betray the lie and hoping he would come back to her. The skin was pale, too pale. When she touched his hand, it was cold, but not as cold as she expected. She said nothing about her thoughts. Another of Mondo's sisters, named Marie, arrived later that day. She pressed her thumb into ink and stamped the paperwork with shaking hands. The document made it official. Mondo Naruvas was dead. His body was placed in cold storage for 20 hours, alone, silent. However, there was one thing that was happening here in the algid holding cell, something that somehow got past the doctors and family. Mondo was still breathing, so shallow that it was undetectable. 20 hours slowly passed. His family proceeded with his modest graveside service and was buried north of the village beneath a bright sun and murmured prayers. 10 days later, a prepared heavy concrete slab was placed sealing the grave, pressing the earth down over his buried body as if to make it certain. For the village, the story ended there. Meanwhile, for Mondo, it had only just begun. Darkness returned him to himself, a suffocating awareness that he could do nothing about. He woke trapped inside his own body, unable to move, unable to scream. Awake in the grave. His lungs burned for air that would not come, and he heard the familiar sounds of dirt striking wood. He felt the weight pressing down on him from all sides. He had been buried alive. His mind shattered then, splintering under the pressure and the scope of what had just happened to him. The potion still coursing through his veins, a voodoo potion, froze his muscles and gave the appearance that he had slipped into death's arms. Jimson weed twisted his thoughts into fevered hallucinations. He drifted between waking and nightmare, aware enough to know he was dying, but helpless enough to be forced to endure it. The coffin suddenly opened. Rough, strong, angry hands dragged him out. He was beaten, bound, and hauled through the night like an animal. Mondo tried with all his mind to beg, but no sound came out. His tongue felt swollen. His thoughts slipped through his grasp like smoke. A weathered man stood waiting beneath the trees in the distance, and Mondo was dragged in his direction. This man was a powerful Vodou Bokor, a malevolent Haitian priest, a sorcerer of the darkest kind. He fed Mondo with thick paste, bitter and foul. He told him his name no longer mattered, and that his will was gone. The Bokor told him his soul had been stolen. And then the work began. For 2 years, he labored in the sugar fields under the sun, his body alive, his mind completely caged. He felt pain but could not protest, hunger but could not contest. His days blurred together in the relentless heat, and his thoughts remained foggy, distant, yet obedient. He was not dead, but still caught in hell. Years passed, and the Haitian Bokor was killed, murdered by rivals or spirits. No one really knew. Only then did the spell begin to loosen. Slowly, but painfully, consciousness returned like a cruel joke. Mondo realized what he had become only after the chains were gone. A man who had attended his own funeral. He wandered for years after the spell was broken, afraid to return home, replaying the nightmares of the messages whispered to him of the person responsible for this bounty of torture. His own flesh and blood, his brother. The one who had sold his soul over land. And in Haiti, land was life, and Mondo refused to divide it. That refusal had cost him everything. What felt like an eternity had passed since he was dragged from his own grave, alive, but trapped in hell. On a warm morning, a local woman was shopping in the open-air marketplace, selecting fresh fruits and vegetables for her evening meal, when a man stepped into her path. He was thin, weathered. His eyes were too old for his face. He spoke her childhood name, a name no one alive should have remembered. She suddenly felt the ground tilt beneath her feet, her heart pound so loud she almost couldn't hear what the man said. The weathered man had smiled slightly, hesitant, fragile, and simply said, "Sister." She screamed and barely recovered herself from fainting. Doctors examined him, psychiatrists questioned him, and villagers whispered. The case baffled everyone who touched it. Medical records confirmed his death. His family confirmed his burial. The man before them knew things only Mondo Neruvis could know. He spoke of the coffin. He spoke of the fields. He spoke of the heat. Some said it was poison. Some said it was voodoo, and some said it was both. The scientists argued about chemistry. The priests spoke of punishment, and the villagers spoke in hushed tones, careful not to anger forces they did not understand. Mondo himself rarely spoke. When he did, it was quiet. "I was awake," he said once. "I just couldn't come back." At night, he dreamed of dirt passing across his chest, The feeling of his lungs begging for air, of being warm underground while the world above him mourned him. Sometimes, when the heat lingered too long, when the smell of the earth clung to the air, he would stand very still, staring at nothing as if listening to the sounds of a coffin lid opening once again. Suddenly, he would snap back, only to find himself still trapped in his mental hell under the power of the Bokor. The stinging feeling of rough fingers on his slack, chapped lips delivering more of the Cocombre zombie potion.